Hello everybody, and welcome to Amateur Cast, where I get you and your replays to be casted for my entertainment and hopefully to help you improve a little bit as well. I am your host, ZookaMan, and we're going to be going into a ZVT. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our players. Up here in the top left-hand side of the map, Foxtrot Labs, I believe is what it is. We're going to be seeing Tomatopunch, excuse me. I was looking at it as the abbreviation from the nameplate up here, and didn't look down here where I probably should have. He's going to be the Zerg player. He's going to be red. He's going to be representing Team ID. And his opponent on the opposite side of the map. Force cross spawns now, I believe. Going to have RSI's Icky, and he's going to be a Terran player. So what's going on in the matchup right now in TVZ? Well, TVZ is a kind of an interesting matchup to see. You see a lot of different things coming out from both players. What I expect to see as far as this play between these two players, because I believe this is a low-level game. I normally do get casts of low-level games, so that's kind of where I'm assuming. I think it might have been Platinum, or it could have been Diamond, somewhere around there. I apologize, guys, for not remembering that, even though I just loaded into this game about 5 seconds before starting this recording. In any case, a Terran player wouldn't be opposed to seeing Bio, or excuse me, wouldn't be surprised to see Bio out of him. I split the Mech. Mech isn't very popular until you get up into the Diamond League, and even then, Bio is still pretty even as far as that is concerned. And so for the Terran player, that's what I would expect from the Zerg player. Earlier expansions into probably a earlier pool, or excuse me, a little bit delayed pool into a Baneling Nest to get some Baneling control on the map. Alternatively, you can go into quick roaches. Behind that, of course, you're going to either way want to get your Roach Warren, and I'll go back to that in just a little bit. But you can go for an earlier Roach Warren and be going for Roach Hydra, which is a thing in the matchup as well. It's not popular. I haven't seen a whole lot of games, especially in low levels, where Roach Hydra has been used. I see a lot of Baneling Muta Ling, and I think that's just kind of the preferred style in the matchup right now. Now, taking a little bit more of an advantage here as we see the Reaper coming out from our Terran player. Terran players in the game now are going to be doing more aggressive openings. I'm seeing a lot more aggressive openings since the Hellbat nerf, or excuse me, Hellbat buff came into play. So maybe we'll see something along the lines of an early Hellion attack into a Hellbat push to kind of punish the Zerg player who doesn't go for roaches. I know that that can be pretty powerful if you don't see it coming. Now back home, of course, we're going to be seeing the CC coming down from our Terran player, which is that he is going to be going into a more economic favored area here. We might be seeing something along the lines of a factory here in just a few seconds. Looks like that is exactly what we're going to be seeing. Actually, it's not going to go where I tell it to because it's not completed yet. In any case, factory is on its way, so we're probably going to be seeing a Hellion follow up here, considering that there is a reactor on that barracks. A couple of Marines out, switch the Hellion around. Reaper is going to be poking in up to the north. Isn't really going to be able to find too much. There are a couple of Zerglings out and ready to defend. Melba was about a quarter of the way done, so we'll be seeing that out in the field in just a little bit. For the Zerg player, the big thing for him is seeing him go onto drones, and droning up is very important, especially when you're reading on that natural expansion. Of course, you do want to be a little bit careful, because if you drone up too hard, then you can be susceptible to a large number of Reaper plays, as well as some Hellbat and Hellions openings, which are become more popular as players kind of get used to the whole Hellbat change, which I guess it's been around enough that people are kind of more used to it than they would have been otherwise. But in any case, we're going for a bunker over here, and okay, I was second there, I thought that was another bunker. We're seeing one bunker here to help defend against that. I believe is up against the plates, so that you either have to come around this way or break down the plates and go through this way. So either way, a little bit more defended. Always good to see. Creep strike going to be starting up here from our Zerg player. Always good to see. Stimpack on its way back home from Icky. Yeah, that is going to be a switch into Hellions. So we have 2 Hellions on the way. We're probably going to be seeing another 2 before they move out. 4 to 6 Hellions is super popular in terms of an opening. Now, right now, Tomatopunch is going to be going straight on in with a couple of Zerglings into that natural expansion, get a little bit of scouting done, maybe get a little bit of damage done as well. He is going to scout that the Hellions are on the field, going to scout that the bunkers are in place, or at least the bunker and the supply depot are in place. So he's going to know a good idea of where his opponent is at as far as economy and units. But now comes the big point. We don't have any really big defense against Hellions right now. And as our Zerg player has been playing very drone heavy, these Hellions might be able to come into the natural expansion and get a little bit of damage done. Looks like they're going to be able to go straight onto those queens. You have double queen coming out from here from Tomatopunch. I believe there's one creep queen here. Yes, looks like one creep queen and then the queen for the hatchery, which probably should be enough against 4 Hellions. I believe 6 to 8 is when you start being able to overpower a couple of queens and deny scouting. Needs to go up and check out for third base, especially in that gold base. Looks like he's going to be doing that right now. Definitely a very vulnerable position to be in from a Zerg player. Normally you see the third base coming down over here, where the gold base is a little bit more undefended. Makes it a little bit more difficult to be able to defend against it. That being said, the Hellions are going to be under a little bit of fire here. Zerglings are going to die one at a time. Layer on its way. We have lots of more Zerglings on the way. But the Hellions do know that this is on the field, and if he so choose, Icky could go up into Hellbat pressure here, and since we don't have a Roach Warren, he might be able to get that third base. Instead, he's going to be going up for a third CC, finish up on a sim. It looks like he's going to be just moving up into upgrades and getting a few more units out while expanding behind it, keeping the Hellions as a more defensive option as opposed to an aggressive option with Hellbats or anything of the sort. Bangling Nest is going to be coming up back home for a Zerg player, which means that we are going to be seeing Banglings, obviously. Centrifugos on their way as well, with that layer going to be finishing up in just a little bit. Spire shouldn't be too far off. He does have that third base, is a gold base, so he should be able to have the resources to be able to defend against that, or excuse me, to add that on in just a little bit. We have a large clump of Zerglings going to be waiting outside here. I believe this is going to be waiting for a Bangling Nest to go in for a Bangling bust. But he's just going to send in some Zerglings. Going to lose a lot of Zerglings actually here to the initial fire, but is going to get this around, which is going to be able to get quite a bit of damage done. Icky's going to be in a little bit of an awkward position as far as that concerned, losing a lot more units there to this round than he necessarily really wanted to have. Spire is on its way as well from our Zerg player, which means that he is going to be very nice and comfy on 6 Geysers. And 6 Geysers is actually really good for Mutalisk production. It's not the best. Normally you want 6 to 8 for optimal production. Obviously 8 being a little bit better if you want to go for a large number of Mutalisk, and 6 being a little bit more conservative in that department. But with the Banglings and the Zerglings as well, he doesn't really need to invest too much into the Mutalisk production in itself. It's a lot about balance in this composition and finding out what works as far as that goes. We're going to be seeing Centrifugos on its way. Not too surprising that the Bangling seed will be out in just a little bit. Taking a look over the upgrades right now, we do have the 1-1 up here from our Zerg player, comparative to the 1-1 just now finishing up for our Terran player. 2-2 has already been started right now, and that means that our Zerg player is going to have the advantage as far as upgrades go, unless he attacks at a specific awkward window. Taking a look at the Harvesters, they are pretty close between these two players right now, so nothing really too out of the ordinary between our two players right now. As far as the economy goes, of course we do have the muling capabilities, and looking at our income tab, it isn't going to make too much of a difference, but it's going to make a couple 200, 300 here blips every so often for a Terran player, so we'll have a little bit better here and there. We're going to see a little bit of drop play from some Marines, going to be heading straight to that gold base. That might not have actually been a drop play. It was some sort of aggression there. Drop play is going to be coming up in the main base, is going to be heading for this drone line. Wouldn't be opposed to him going straight for the Spire, considering that he just forced the pull of the drones, which is going to stop quite a bit of damage done there. It looks like he is going to be going straight for the Spire right about now, and he's going to be actually losing the opportunity and forced to fall back. He's going to go for the boost out of there, but as soon as that runs out, the Retalists are going to catch up, and there's going to be, well, explosion of medevac, to say the least. We have another drop play coming out of the third base, which is going to get a little bit more damage done. Always good to see this drop play, and this is something that I love about good bio play. It's able to drop in multiple places at once, and especially against a Zerg player, it forces the Zerg player to go here and there, and it makes it very awkward because spores are a very hard investment for a Zerg player to decide to do, and most of the time Zerg players would rather use the creep spread to get their units back to defend than use Sword Crawlers, unless, of course, the drop play is really, really bad, and then you really want to drop down a couple of Sword Crawlers just for an extra little bit of defense. We're seeing gases drop down here for third base. We do have missile turrets on their way to help defend against those Mutalisks. Widowmine production has started. We might see Thor production as well, which all in all will help out with taking care of those Mutalisks. Just needs to be really careful right now about keeping himself defended against this kind of play. Love to see him continue to get a little bit of drop play on the map right now. Of course, that is very difficult considering the fact that the Mutalisks are on the field. But if he can get a little bit of damage done to the Mutalisks, force a couple of more to be made, he can get a nice window of opportunity with drop. Mutalisk play is going to coming straight into that actual expansion. Going to be getting a few kills here, a few kills there, but at the end of the day, that's going to make a big difference. Zerglings are going to be moving out across map as well as those Banglings and Mutas. They're going to be heading straight for that third base. Here comes the Bio Army to be able to defend against this. Lots of Widowmines are going off, but not really going off on where he needs them to. They're supposed to probably would have been better to go off on the Zerglings than the majority of the Mutas. In fact, a lot of the Mutas aren't going to be the big problem. The Banglings and the Zerglings are going to be the big problem. Icky is in a very bad position right now. Has a lot of units in danger. A lot of SCVs just about died there from a Bangling. But it's okay. He's going to hold. He has a little bit of follow-up. He has a third base. He has Widowmines on the way. But I definitely would say, from Icky right now, going up into Thor production would be the best thing for him right now, as well as maybe getting a couple of Vikings and just keeping his opponent on his back foot. Drop play is extremely powerful right now, especially on bases that aren't quite as defended, like this fifth base that's just coming up right now. Getting a little bit of damage on the field so that he can get the units out that he needs to get out is going to be a big thing for him. He's going to be falling back here off of this fight. He's going to be moving into the Widowmines, but really not going to be able to get enough damage with these to be able to substantiate a attack. Upgrades are even at this point, but we do have a +1 in the Mutalisk production, so that's going to get a little bit counteracted by the +1 in the ships and vehicles plating, which is essentially the armor for the ships and vehicles. It's also going to be adding on his +3 as far as our Terran player is concerned. 6th place is on its way from our Zerg player. And this is starting to get into pretty dangerous territory for Icky. Needs to be really careful about how he engages this. Because if he does not stop these bases from coming up, the Zerg player is going to have a huge economic ability to be able to reproduce really, really fast. And with a Bangling Muta lane composition, you really don't want that to happen because the units come out so fast. Looks like we're going to be seeing a major engagement between these two players. Splits are going to be coming up. There's going to be a stem forward into the units. The Widowmines are, of course, already fired off on. And at this point, I think that our Zerg player just has the distinct advantage. So many more units. Just at this point, I'm not sure that Icky can really do too much about it. He is going to have pretty decent splits, but at the end of the day, I think that the Widowmines are just not going to be enough. He needs more to this army to be able to substantiate any sort of damage and be able to win some of these fights. And right now, the big thing is that he can't win these fights because his opponent's up on bases, and he can't stop the bases because he's not winning fights. And it's sort of a vicious cycle that keeps going back and forth again and again. He does have his 3-3 on the way, which is going to come into his advantage as well. We do have the +2 on the flyer upgrades. As far as the attack is concerned, I don't think there's any Carapace right now. No Carapace. Not too out of the ordinary. Usually you're going to be seeing Carapace come out later. I believe we saw a little bit of pressure here from a drop play. We're also going to be seeing a little bit of a Widowminer drop play coming up over here. So definitely going to be using the advantage of the mobility from his army to come to his aid. But right now what he needs is Thors. Thors are so good against Mutalisks, and I would even argue going up into Marauders, heavy Marauder count, because against Banglings, Marauders are going to be your best friend. And I understand that it's a little bit difficult to have the gas off of 3 base, which is why 4th base is always a good idea at this point. Third player is going to be wanting to engage here. Right now, this is actually his prime engagement, as long as he doesn't know into those Widowmines. Widowmines already activating right now. A couple of good shots are going to be coming off. Not on the Banglings, though, which is where they really need to be going off. Needs to shut down the Bangling numbers to be able to win this engagement. But right now, I don't think that that's going to be extremely possible. The STEM units are going to be pulling back, trying to get as much use out of them as he possibly can. But really, at this point, Tomato is just going to have the advantage in almost every way. He has the bases, he has the harvesters, he has the production, he has the income. He has the army. He just is ahead in every single way. He even has hive tech coming up behind this so that he's able to transition off of this composition, and that's probably what's going to really kill Icky here. He's not only not prepared for the current composition, he doesn't even know that the next composition is going to be coming out, whatever that composition is, if that's adding in some ultras or maybe going into broodlords. I don't believe broodlords are the best thing in this situation, but they're still a good idea considering the fact that there's no Thors on the map, no Vikings on the map, and really the only anti-air we have are Marines and Mines, and he really can't afford much else right now. The gold base is going to help, and as long as he can get mules on that, it's going to really help his income. But the big thing here is that the Zerg player can move in at any time and cause Icky to have to fight to be able to move forward into this game, and that's going to be the big thing. Zerg player is going to be moving in. A lot of banglings are going to be going off, not hitting the best connections, but really right now he has the numbers that he doesn't need to hit all the best connections in the world. Mules are going to be flying straight over to this mineral line. Going to be going straight after that. A couple of Marines are just going to stay here where they're going to be in a little bit of danger. Zerg player is going to be forced to fall back by now, but really at this point he just has a lot of the advantage. And Icky, he needs to change his composition. There's nothing wrong with Biomine, and there's nothing wrong with Marine Mine. But against Bangling Muta Ling, it is very difficult to build up a proper amount of mines at this point in the game. If he had been going for a large number of mines earlier on, and he was able to keep them alive and keep them masked up, it might be a little bit different. But at this point, he doesn't have the numbers he needs to be able to do the damage to the Zerg army. Therefore, I would suggest against the Widow Mines, and I've talked about this a lot in the past, against the whole matter of Widow Mines versus tanks, and against Banglings, I think tanks are just the better option because they're going to be able to get more damage done from a further distance than the Widow Mines, because the Widow Mines are going to have to be right on top of those units. And as we've seen many times throughout this game, that often ends up causing the mines to end up dying, or not getting the connections that they absolutely need. Looks like the Zerg player is deciding to move in right about now. A lot of Banglings are going to be clumping up right now. Ooh, lots of connections are going to be coming off, but not really quite as good as he wants. Now, the Zerg player is going to have to start working on getting his transition up. Looks like he does have his 3-3 on the way. Adrenal glands are on the way as well. But definitely would love to see an additional tech unit added in here. Love to see Ultralists. I think that would be the big thing that would break the back of Icky right now. Broodlords, I can kind of see being able to outdistance the Marines as well as the middle mines. Possibly move up into maybe Swarm Hosts. I'm not really sure what else tech-wise he can do. Maybe Roach Hydra. Roach Hydra necessarily isn't the best decision in this circumstance. But he does need to start moving up into transition into something else. We're going to be seeing a little bit of a push out here from our Zerg player, or excuse me, from our Terran player. Getting a little bit of damage done. Is going to be forced to fall back here. We also have a drop coming up into the 5th base over here to the north. It is going to be heading straight for the weather lines, or excuse me, for the drone line. He's going to be getting an extractor for his trouble. He needs to get these units evacuated out now, though, because the Banglings are going to be coming in to get a bit more damage done. But his attention is diverted over here to this base, forcing the units to hold. And right now, actually, I would have to very much agree with what Icky is doing right now. I like that he is using the superior ability of his drop play to be able to keep his opponent on the back foot while he gets those units that he needs. The Thor production is going to start. It's a little bit late, but better late than never in my opinion. Always good to have that out, especially against high number of Mutalists. And as those Thors start to get up on the map, and once you go up to 3 or 4 Thors, the Mutalists are going to have to go away. We're going to have to focus on a better composition against what we see from our Terran player. But until then, Zerg player has a distinct advantage as far as economy, army composition, and excuse me, we're just playing workers, 71 to 55 right now. So he's going to be able to have the economy to be able to do anything that he really wants to do at this point, or should do at this point. Look, 3-3 is up, and pretty much up for both players. We do have 3-3 on, or just 3 on the attack for the Flyers. We're not going to be having air carapace, but that's not too surprising. You don't normally see air carapace upgrades being taken out. Zerg army is going to be heading straight for the Terran army here. We're going to be seeing a couple of Mirages sprinkled in, help against those Banglings. Good connections are going to be coming off. which is going to cost Tomatopunch the game. And that is actually, I'm going to resend a little bit of my statement here from Icky. Earlier talking about the Widow Mines and how Widow Mines are not effectively the best unit here. I do kind of stand by with that fact. I still think tanks would be a little bit of a better decision in this circumstance, but that engagement with the mines, as well as with the increased Marauder numbers and the Thors, was able to get him back into it. And I think that from a Zerg player standpoint, he really just couldn't keep up. Alright folks, as we do with every amateur cast, at the end of the cast, or at the end of the live cast, we do point out a few things that both of our players can learn from this. We're going to start with our Zerg player, as we always start with the player who lost the game first. Big ones. Big things. I like his economy. He was able to spend really well. He had a high number of gas. But talking about composition, this is a subject that is very, very important for all Zerg players. So if you're a Zerg player watching right now, or you're a Zerg player listening right now, or whatever, keep this in mind. As a Zerg player, the power of your army isn't just in your army. And I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but let me explain. The power of your current army is, say, in this circumstance, Bling, Ling, Muta. That particular composition. The strength of your army against the composition of your opponent, in this case, Marauders, Marines, and Thors with Widowmine support. In this circumstance, Muta, Bangling, and Ling is not a good decision. Now, when I say that the power of your army isn't just in your current army, I mean it's also applicable to your future army. And that's the big thing for Zerg players. I know that there's a lot of high-level streamers who talk, or excuse me, high-level casters that talk about tech switching as a Zerg player and the power of tech switching. And I stand by that fact because if you are able to, for example, in this situation, say that instead of keeping up on this composition, when he had gotten the hive, he had just dropped down an Ultralisk Cavern. When he had done that, he would have been able to, after he lost, I believe not this engagement, but the engagement before, he would have been able to produce Ultralisks. And for those of you who don't know what an Ultralisk is, it's a very, very big tanky unit that is able to take a lot of damage, and is able to do a lot of damage in a kind of a sort of like a Colossus Thermal Lance sort of pattern. If he had gone for Ultralisk in this situation, Ultralisks would have completely destroyed this composition for Icky. It would be the complete counter, if I do say so, because the Widow Mines are not going to be able to do enough damage. Thors are not very effective against Ultralisk, and Marines and Marauders are not effective against Ultralisk unless you properly 100% micro them, and that's not going to happen realistically in the low leagues. So, big thing from the Zerg player is to say tech switching. Know the power of not just your current army, but your future army. And that one went a little bit long, guys. I apologize for that. Terran player, I like your decision to move up into the Thors. I did mention throughout the cast that it should have come a little bit earlier. Bases were a little bit late, but that's because you were a little bit behind. You're playing defensive most of the game. So that's kind of to be expected. Spend well. I think you could have changed your composition a little bit sooner. Could have gone for the Thor sooner, like I said just a couple seconds ago. Upgrades were good from you. That would be the big thing I'd have to say. Work on your composition and making sure that you can expand. And I know you did this, so don't say, oh, hey, but I did do this. Drop play is very important, especially when your opponent is up on as many bases as we see right now. And if your opponent isn't going spores, abuse the heck out of that. Make sure that they can't get the army that they need. For my example earlier, going up to Ultralisk, make sure that they don't have the income to be able to go up into Ultralisk. So that analysis, guys, kind of ran it a little bit long at the end there. I apologize. But there was a really big point I wanted to make, and this was a pretty decent game as far as elaborating that point. So, folks, if you enjoy the cast and would like to get your game tasted, you can send a replay on over to ZookaMan900 at gmail.com, or alternatively, you can check out Reddit, cast it, upload it there, and I will take a look at it, or if I don't, somebody else will. I know we have 3 or 4 big active casters on there right now who can cast your game if you so choose. Besides that, folks, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Get this around. Make sure that people can see it and learn, because that's a big thing about StarCraft. You always want to be able to learn, and I think that a casting environment is one of the best ways in order to do that. So, folks, this has been ZookaMan. I hope you enjoyed this cast. So, we'll see you on the next cast, and take care, guys.